Today, we're going to dive into the story of just a handful of families who, believe it or not, control the destiny of an entire nation. It's a story about incredible growth, yeah, but also staggering power, and a really dark side that affects millions. So, let's get into it. It's December 5th, 2014. A Korean Air flight is sitting on the tarmac at JFK, all set to depart for Seoul. But up in the first-class cabin, something is going very, very wrong. Something that's about to spark an international incident. So Heather Cho, who happens to be the daughter of Korean Air's chairman, was absolutely furious. And why? Because her macadamia nuts were served to her in a bag, not on a plate. She started screaming at the cabin crew, actually forced the chief flight attendant to get on his knees and apologize, and then, get this, she ordered the entire plane, a plane full of people, to turn around so he could be kicked off. But this was hardly a one-off thing. You see, Heather's own sister Emily once threw a drink at an executive during a meeting. The heir to another major company assaulted bar staff with a whiskey bottle. The list just goes on and on. Public outbursts, assaults, scandals, all involving the heirs of South Korea's most powerful families. It's a pattern.
Now, this kind of behavior isn't really just about a few spoiled individuals. No, it's a symptom of something much, much bigger. A system that's built around this unique and incredibly powerful type of corporation, the Chaebol.
So what is a Chaebol? Well, the term refers to South Korea's massive, family-run industrial conglomerates. You absolutely know their names. We're talking Samsung, LG, Hyundai. But these aren't just companies. They're more like sprawling empires, run like kingdoms that are passed down from one generation to the next.
And the sheer scale of their economic power is just staggering. I mean, just 5 of these family-run Chaebols, Samsung, LG, Hyundai, SK, and Lotte, generate revenue that's equivalent to almost half of South Korea's entire GDP. It's a level of economic concentration that's, well, it's almost unimaginable anywhere else.
Which, of course, brings us to the big question, right? How on earth did a modern democracy like South Korea end up with an economy so completely controlled by just a few dynastic families?
Well, the story really begins in the aftermath of the Korean War. The country was in ruins, its economy was completely shattered. And out of all that devastation, the government decided it needed to rebuild, and it needed to do it fast. The real turning point came in 1961 with a military coup led by General Park Chung-hee. He was not happy with the slow pace of growth, so he decided to partner directly with a handful of chosen companies. Through a series of 5-year plans, his government literally funneled capital, loans, and all sorts of resources directly to them, and in doing so, transformed them into industrial giants. And the results? They were absolutely dramatic. Now, the crucial thing to understand here is that this was basically business on easy mode. The government guaranteed their foreign loans, gave them exclusive licenses, huge tax breaks, and completely protected them from any foreign competition. In that kind of environment, being politically connected became way more valuable than actually being efficient. So, this system of unchecked, debt-fueled growth created these massive corporations, for sure, but it also created massive fragility. And in 1997, that entire house of cards just came crashing down during the Asian financial crisis. Take a look at this number. By 1997, the top 30 Chaebols had an average debt-to-equity ratio of nearly 600%. Now, just to put that in perspective, the average for a big U.S. company today is around 60%. They were 10 times more leveraged, basically operating on a mountain of borrowed money. So when the crisis hit, the result was nothing short of catastrophic. With their debts suddenly being called in, these giants were revealed to be hollow. Between 1997 and 1999, more than a third of the country's biggest Chaebols simply went bankrupt.
The scale of this failure was just immense. The collapse of the Daewoo Group, with $80 billion in debt, was the largest corporate bankruptcy the world had ever seen at that point. Its chairman just fled the country, leaving taxpayers to foot the entire bill.
The IMF had to step in with a massive rescue package, and they demanded reforms, more transparency, more accountability. But since then, it's just been this relentless cycle of scandals, from tax evasion to bribery and embezzlement, often followed by ridiculously light sentences or even presidential pardons. So, how does this system, a system born from the ashes of war, actually affect the lives of ordinary Koreans today? Well, the sheer dominance of the Chaebols has created something that can only be described as an inverted pyramid of privilege.
This chart tells a really shocking story.
In South Korea, just the top 30 companies account for 77% of the entire nation's GDP. Now compare that to the United States, where it takes the top 500 companies to account for a smaller share, just 66%. The concentration of economic power is just completely off the charts.
But here's the paradox. While the Chaebols absolutely dominate the economy, they employ a tiny, tiny fraction of the workforce. Only 14% of Koreans actually work for these large companies, compared to 58% in the US. So you have a few companies holding all the wealth, but only a few people getting to benefit from it directly. And this power allows them to squeeze the small and medium-sized businesses that make up the rest of the economy. They force them into exclusive supply contracts, they demand to see their suppliers' cost sheets just so they can drive down prices, and they've even been accused of stealing their technology and cutting them out of the picture entirely.
This all creates a really stark divide in the job market. If you land one of those coveted Chaebol jobs, you're looking at pay that's nearly 60% higher and incredible job security. But those jobs are becoming rarer and rarer, leading to what they call jobless growth. And this has been absolutely devastating for young people, with Korea having one of the highest youth unemployment rates in the developed world.
So why does this system stick around? With all these obvious problems, from corruption to inequality, why hasn't anything fundamentally changed? Well, the answer seems to be that the system has become too big to fail and maybe too fragile to fix.
You have to understand, the Chaebols aren't just economic powerhouses. Their influence is deeply entrenched in every single pillar of society. They're major political donors, they're the biggest clients for law firms, they're the largest funders for universities, and they have immense power over the media through their advertising dollars. If you challenge them, you're pretty much risking your entire career.
And the result of all this is a real, tangible financial penalty that's known as the Korea discount. International investors, they're wary of the murky ownership structures and the family's habit of prioritizing their own interest over shareholders. So they consistently value Korean companies less than their global peers. It all comes down to a fundamental lack of trust. And this leaves us with a final, really provocative thought that I think captures the almost mythical power these families hold. There's no doubt that Chaebols helped build modern Korea, but their unchecked dominance now raises a critical question. Could they also be the ones to unmake it? What does the future really hold when a nation's economy is run not by markets, but by kings?